G'day, Stu from UAVfutures here, and today, well, we're going to be looking at this little bad boy right here. This is the PIKO OWL from Flex RC, and I'm pretty impressed because this has such a small footprint. It should have a ton of power, and the most impressive thing for me is most of it is 3D printed. So I haven't tested out any other 3D printed frames before, so I'm pretty excited. I love the normal Flex RC OWL that we had, and I also tested out the baby. Is it the baby owl, the mini owl? But this time I'm excited because this one is even smaller. It should be perfect for flying around indoors. The weather's junk at the moment. So what we're going to do, we're going to stick it on the bench, break it down, have a look at some of its components, and then most importantly, we'll take it out, fly around and have a good time. And we'll also get Grumpy Trev to try it out as well because I know he's a big fan of the Flex RC OWL. So it's pretty cool to get this one on the bench. Let's quit wasting time. Enough rambling from me. Let's stick it on the bench and get started. Alrighty, so here it is on the bench, and the first thing I'm going to say is this is like a printed, this is actually like a squishy frame. I've never had that before. The guys over at Flex RC are definitely sort of taking the fun out of their name. Flex, I think that's exactly what this frame is going to be doing a lot of because it's all made out of this printed TPU, except for this one little brace plate on the bottom, so this little carbon plate right here. Now, if we look at it at the start, what we'll notice is it's pretty much got a tiny little footprint here in the middle, and that's because it's all built on the PIKO flight controller. So you've got your little Betaflight flight controller in there, the PIKO, I think it's the PIKO BLX, absolutely tiny, and that allows this thing to be about the size of your hand. So a really, really small footprint makes it super light, and should also make it super fun to fly around indoors. Now what we should do, let's weigh the thing. So I've got my scales right here, stick them on. It's coming in without the battery at about 60, I wonder if you guys can see that, 62 grams or 61.98. So a really, really light little quadcopter, and that's because of a few reasons. So number one, there's not too much carbon in here, and that's going to be also awesome for our antenna. So we shouldn't be getting too much RF interference, so we should be getting some good reception. You've got some tiny little motors on the outside, so we've got, these are some actual Flex RC branded motors, 1103, I think they're 8,000 kV, so you should be getting a ton of thrust when you're flying this thing around, and that's important because you've got pretty small props. Now these are the Rotor X 4-blade props, but you have to cut these down, so you do need a little prop tool, or you do need to give these a bit of a trim in order to make them fit. So that's how they get the footprint so small. And am I a fan of that? I'm not 100% sure, because any extra work I have to do when you're changing props is going to bug me. But in saying that, these props are well protected, so it should be interesting. They shouldn't break too much, and then you've also got, they also screw right down, so they're not going to be flying off like on some of your other builds. Now if we look in the middle right here, let's move in and talk about some of the internal components. Now at the bottom of this stack, you've got your tiny little 4-in-1 ESCs, and I think they're 6 amp ESCs, and that's no dramas because you're not going to be blowing anything like that on such a small tiny little prop. The load that you get, the amps you're going to actually draw, are not going to be very much at all. And then it's a pretty simple build, which is why it helps to keep so light. So above that you've got your PIKO BLX flight controller, which is in the top, and that's what this whole build is designed about, that really, really small footprint in the middle. I've put in a little flight controller for me, so this is the, I think that's the FS-A8S or whatever it is. I'll leave a link up here to what flight controller to what receiver I'm using actually, and that's so it can work with my Turnigy Evolution. And then, this is pretty cool, you've got room for one of those all-in-one camera boards. So we've got our camera and a VTX solution right here, and I reckon you've got enough room. If you desperately wanted to, you could probably mod this somehow to fit in like a HS1177 or one of those micro Swifts. I think that would be pretty cool as well. I'm going to see if I can find one actually. Maybe I'm going to do this actually to make an awesome little indoor flyer. You could put something like a Runcam Swift, one of these little bad boys in right here, and get some unparalleled FPV footage from such a tiny little craft. Because usually you have to suffer with the camera you're going to be using, but with something like some of these new little, I'll leave a link to these cameras in the description down below anyway, but for something like this, I think that's almost made for this. That's a pretty good idea there, if I don't say so myself. Now of course you've got your VTX channels on the back, super easy to change channels and things like that, and then encased in this nice little bit of printed TPU, and underneath you've got your little battery holder that you simply slide your batteries in. But mine came with an XT30, but if you need to change it out for a JST or any other sort of connector, that would be a pretty easy job. And overall, I think this thing is going to be a hoot to fly around. That's a bit of a joke there, get it? Like, anyway. So yeah, I think this thing's going to be a ton of fun to fly around, which is exactly what I want to do now. So let's cut to some flight footage. It's going to be some DVR because, of course, there's no way this thing's going to be carrying a GoPro because the whole thing itself was actually lighter, I think, than a GoPro. Yeah, very, very light. So 62 grams. We're flying this bad boy around, so let's cut down to some of that flight footage right now in 3, 2, 1. Rightio, down here in a bit of a warehouse, so this should be a little bit more exciting than just flying around my tiny house can definitely handle a bit more room because it definitely has some punch. So let's check out some DVR of the PIKO OWL. All right, let's do it. This is a little kid called Nate. He was at the warehouse as well, so a little shout out to Nate, and also a massive big shout out to Andy as well. So thanks so much for letting us fly around this warehouse because I had an absolute blast. It's a really cool place to fly, and what made it even better was flying around with the PIKO OWL. So the first thing that I want to talk about is just how stable this thing was. Like, I've flown around the Baby Hawk, the Aurora, a whole bunch of mini micros, and I've never had a little quad like this that flies quite so well. Like, I was expecting it to be pretty good, but I was actually totally blown away with how good this thing felt in the air. And I think that's because rocking this thing on 3S, it had so much punch and so much stability that it was unbelievable. And the crazy thing was, like, on a 500 milliamp hour battery, so, you know, on a 3S one of those, it was getting like some 5 or 6 minute flight times. This thing just kept going and going and going. It was absolutely crazy, and so much so that it still had so much more poke or so much more stick left to give because I'm probably flying around on about 50% throttle here, so it could definitely pick up some speed if you were going to take it outside. And I think in a moment we give it over to Grumpy Trev, but I just want to say that this is the most fun flying experience I've ever had with one of these small micros. If you've got a brush micro like a Tiny Whoop or even something like the Aurora, this thing, in my opinion, is the best one that I've flown so far. So really durable. I like the little bits, how it could bounce off, and the prop guards and things like that made it really quick. And overall, it was just an awesome little micro. So here I think I'm coming in a little bit of speed. I think I have a little bit of a crash here as well. But yeah, this is when I'm starting to push it, probably beyond my abilities, but you can definitely see if you want to rip this thing around, you could have a ton of fun. Anyway, we should hand it over to Grumpy Trev and see what he thinks when he's flying it around. All right. Alrighty, so I've just flown around with the PIKO OWL and it was a ton of fun. So let's hand it over to Grumpy Trev and see what he thinks.
Really neat and tidy. Really like the way this is put together. Looks deceiving, but it looks great. So let's stop wasting this time and let me have a fly, eh?
All right, let's do it. All right.
Gee, that's better than the other one. I've just been flying around the Aurora. This is nice.
Is it smooth?
It's smooth as. You can tell it's 3S because it's really effortless. Effortless.
Yeah.
It's got some grunt too, isn't it? Gee, it's responsive. Oh, I like this. I really like the way it flies. It's as good, probably flies better than the others. A lot more stable. It's fast, very manoeuvrable.
Any oscillations or anything like that?
No, that is, I can't feel any at all. Look, you could fly this thing through the smallest bloody hole. This is great. This is shot, this little thing. This is going in the smallest nooks and crannies with ease. I like this. I just crashed there. We're just going to check the durability of this now.
All right, so Trevor's crashed it, but what did you think, Trev?
I parked it. I didn't crash it, I just parked it. It's really nice. Look, Stu wants me to wrap this up so we can finish this battery, but I'm not going to let him. This is so nice to fly. Really, it's shot.
So what, the Grumpy Trev rating?
Yeah, Grumpy Trev rating 9. This is it's really shot. Absolutely like it.
All right. Well, you can finish that battery. I'm going to get set up ready for my flight after you. Alrighty, so there it is. There's my review of the PIKO OWL from Flex RC, and I'm going to say this is one of the best, if not best, micro experiences flying something like this around. And I can't believe it's taken me so long to actually get my hands on one. Finally get it on the channel for you guys and rip a few packs for it because it is absolutely silky smooth when you're flying it through the air. I love how it's printed. I love sort of how durable it's going to be. It's not going to muck up your house or anything like that. Can take 2 or 3S batteries, and really the only thing that I think that this thing might have going against it, besides all those positives, is probably the price, because it is a little bit more expensive than some of those cheaper Chinese knockoffs. So I'm not 100% sure how much this is. I'll leave a link down below anyway in the comments, and if there's any like discount codes or anything like that, I'll try and track one down and put that down below. But other than that, yeah, I can really recommend it. Definitely checking out the PIKO OWL because I had a ton of fun with it, and I'm going to be taking it a lot of places with me, especially as winter's approaching and we're going to have a heap of rain. But yeah, subscribe for more FPV related content, and as always, happy flying. Alrighty, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Definitely subscribe if you're new to the channel and check out these videos. And I'm also going to leave a little link here to my Patreon page because I've got some fantastic Patreon supporters and I like to give back to them as well. So if you want to join the UAVfutures family, there's things like bonus Velcro straps, little bundles of FPV goodies and things like that that also get sent out. Anyway, happy flying.